Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane's studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You are here with us. Got a lot to do. Our normal Tuesday guests will be here. Glenn West in 30 minutes. Colin Jeter, top of hour number 2. Sharif Ishak, bottom of hour number 2. You know the drill. We'll talk about the Saints and their quarterback situation. Going to do a little bit of that here. NBA starts tonight with a little bit of opening night action. Pels in action tomorrow. I got big picture stuff with Brian Kelly that I want to talk about at 2:15. So plenty to do. Let's crank it up the way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, I got going on a rabbit hole today. It was not super rewarding, not super satisfying, a little depressing, but it was enlightening. I'll say that. I did a lot of statistical analysis of LSU's offense. If you're looking for the film, Jake and Flynn do an awesome job on the morning show, and they've got a great piece up on LouisianaSports.net called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, breaking down the film. This is the other aspect of this. It's the stats. And ultimately, like when you're looking at an offense statistically, what you're looking for is points. I think to be perfectly correct, you're looking to win games. The point of the game is actually to win it. So if you can win it 3-0, okay. But points is the best indicator of an offense, right? Very few times where you're not trying to score points. It happens where you're being conservative, you're leaning on your defense, you've got a lead, and you win a game. But points is the most important thing. And right now, you're looking at a team that is 86th in the country in scoring offense and 89th in the country in total offense. You're looking at a team that is one of 2 Power 4 programs that has not scored 25-plus points against another Power 4 program, North Carolina being the other, and that is a complete and total soap opera in Chapel Hill right now. In total offense and scoring offense, LSU ranks 12th in the SEC. It's not good, big picture. It's all bad. But what are the underlying roots of these shortcomings? Where is LSU coming up the shortest? And I've boiled it down to 4 or 5 different things that are particularly alarming. The red zone has been awful. Your touchdown percentage is 56%. That is 101st in the country. Why are you not able to get down there and score touchdowns? Well, there are a number of reasons, but I would suggest chief among them is your inability to run the football in the red zone. And I knew this was bad. I did not know it was this bad. There are 136 teams in the FBS subdivision. 136. There are exactly 3 teams that run the ball worse than LSU in the red zone. Kent State, Missouri State, and UMass. That's it. UMass is 0-7. And Kent State played some SEC team recently, and I called them the worst team in the country. I think it was Oklahoma. But LSU is 133rd in the country in rushing the football in the red zone. 133rd. They average 1.13 yards per carry when you get inside the 20. When the field shrinks and you've got to fight for every inch down there around the end zone, you are essentially the worst team in the country. Not literally, but pretty close. And when you compare the talent that you have with Kent State, Missouri State, and UMass, I'd guess you compare pretty favorably to those teams. You're the worst. And you look back at an opportunity down there at the end zone at the end of the game. Against Louisiana Tech, first and goal, inside the 2, can't score. You look at the end of the game against South Carolina. You get a big catch down to the 1-yard line from Trey Green. You cannot get the ball in the end zone from the 1-yard line. You look at the game against Vanderbilt, and you couldn't run it in. Now, you scheme something up and got a touchdown, but Donovan Green committed a penalty. But you couldn't run it in. 133rd in the country in red zone rushing. Inconceivable to me that that could be possible. Another area that LSU has been very, very poor. Slow starts. Your opening drives have been absolutely anemic. I'll go through them in order. Clemson, you got a couple of first downs. You gained 36 yards. Now, 25 of those yards were a handoff to Caden Durham where he got hit in the backfield, spun out, and ran 25 yards. Good play by a talented guy, but that's more than half the yards on that drive. You punted. Louisiana Tech, you got a first down, then you threw a pick. Florida, 6 yards, 3 and out. Southeastern, 5 yards, 3 and out. Ole Miss, 4 yards, 3 and out. South Carolina, 5 yards, 3 and out. And then Vanderbilt, you drove down and got a field goal. Those were the first 3 points you've scored on an opening drive all year. That's supposed to be the point where you've got a script, you've got the plays that you like, the calls that you like. You get into the game and you start moving the football. You went 3 and out against Florida, Southeastern, Ole Miss, and South Carolina 4 weeks in a row. You got better this week against Vanderbilt. You got 44 yards, got 3 first downs, got a field goal, but not great to start games. And the 3 and outs got me thinking about that, 3 and out. And I was just curious if LSU is doing that a little bit more. And I'll be candid with you, the listener, and I would imagine a lot of you are in the boat as me. I wasn't even sure what a good 3 and out percentage is. Like, how often should you be going 3 and out? I didn't know. I knew just by looking at the data from this team that LSU has gone 3 and out on 23% of its drives. I didn't really know if that was like an outlier, if that was pretty standard, if that was bad, if it was okay. Like, I wasn't sure. But LSU's gone 3 and out 17 times in 75 drives this year, and that's 23%. So then my question is, okay, what had they been doing? Well, last year, you went 3 and out 12% of your time with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, Joe Sloan at offensive coordinator. You went out 3 and out 12% of the time. The year before that, the elite offense, Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, high flying, 11% of the time you went 3 and out. The year before that, Brian Kelly's first year with Jaden Daniels, 12%. So in 3 consecutive years of the first 3 years of Brian Kelly's time, Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier, whatever, you were 12%, 11%, 12%. You're at 23% this year. You're almost double the 3 and out percentages. And then you look at, in 2021, Ed Ogeron's last team that had Max Johnson at quarterback, that team went 3 and out 22% of the time. And it was a team that got a coaching staff fired. So you're doubling the output of 3 and outs at this point. And that's part of the reason why of the 122 teams in college football that have played at least 7 games, 122, you're 97th in the amount of plays that you run. Because you're not a tempo team. You're going 3 and out more than you usually do. And if you are running this few plays, you're putting your defense in a bad spot. And you did that in Oxford. And to an extent, you did that at Vanderbilt, even though I put a lot of the blame on the defense for Vanderbilt. But you're just not as good at sustaining drives. You're not as good on third down. Last year, LSU was elite on third down. Last year, LSU finished 6th in the country and led the SEC on third down at 49%. You've got the same quarterback, probably better wide receivers, and right now you're at 42%. That's 54th in the country and 10th in the SEC. You were the best. Now you're 10th. Not sustaining drives, not running enough plays. Then when you get in the red zone, not able to run the ball, not able to get touchdowns. So if you are not running a lot of plays and you get into the red zone and you stall and you can't run the ball down there and you're not great on third down, well, at that point, like, your best chance to create points is to be explosive, to not have to count on red zone, to not have to count on third down, to hit those big plays. Were you doing that? I'll let you guess. 10-plus yard runs. LSU's 121st in the country. There are only 136 teams. You're 121st. 20-yard passes. 98th. Now, look, I get it. Your quarterback was hurt. That really, really limits your ability to get the ball down the field. And I'm not going to blame play calling for some of that, because when Berrien Brown beats Louisiana Tech by 5 yards on the first drive and your quarterback misses by 15 yards, it's because he's hurt. And when Chris Hilton runs right by everybody in Oxford and your quarterback comes up 10 yards short, well, he's banged up. And then when Chris Hilton gets deep behind South Carolina and Nussmeier is healthy enough to make the throw, and then Chris Hilton drops it, like, everybody's at blame here. I'm not pointing the blame immediately at Brian Kelly. I'm not pointing it immediately at Joe Sloan. I'm not pointing it immediately at Garrett Nussmeier. I'm not pinning everything on injuries or the why. Like, everybody's at fault here. But there is nothing that I'm looking at here that is positive on this offense. And that's stunning, because you've got a quarterback that threw for 4,000 yards last year. And for the faults that Garrett Nussmeier has, he's not super fast. He does make some questionable decisions. The ball does get turned over. I'm not absolving Garrett Nussmeier of everything, but to suggest that every quarterback could just show up and throw for 4,000 yards in the SEC is incorrect. He's a capable passer. Caden Durham's a capable running back. Harlan Berry's got talent. Aaron Anderson was third in the SEC in catches last year. Berrien Brown is 10th all-time in Kentucky receiving history. Xavier Thomas has been making plays in the Southeastern Conference for 4 years. Nick Anderson set records at Oklahoma. Now, I don't have a ton up front to give you that's positive on that front. You don't have a lot of proven dudes there. You got a center from Virginia Tech who's played well. You got a right guard from Northwestern that's played okay, and not a lot else to write home about. And that's a big part of this too. But you've got weapons, and you've got the ability to have some sort of identity that produces on this team. And for me to continue to rattle off statistics that are 91st and 122nd and 133rd is just absurd to me. And I don't know if there is a way to make it better. Like, I could try to paint you a rosy picture. I thought they moved the ball against South Carolina and then didn't do as much as they should have in the red zone. Of their first 6 drives against Vanderbilt, they did move into point-scoring territory a lot. But the fact of the matter is that you're never scoring 25 points. And if I can say if you did this and if you did that, but it's every single week, well, you kind of are what you are. And it's not very good. I still contend, to wrap this segment up, I contend that LSU will have a game where it clicks. I think they will have a game where they go score 35 points because of all the reasons I laid out. There are some good players on this offense. But ultimately, when you talk about the 9 games that matter, Clemson and the 8 league games, you're going to have an offense that probably underperforms in 6, 7 of those, or 8 of those, and it's going to cost you 3 or 4 games. This just is what it is, and that's where you are right now. But some of these statistics that I was digging up today just absolutely blew my mind. That a team with that much talent, with that much expectation, could be mentioned in the same breath as Kent State, Missouri State, and UMass. Like, that is mind-blowing. And that's what you've got right now. You got an offense that, by just about every statistical measure, is underperforming. I'm not giving an opinion. These are the stats. They're facts. They're raw numbers and data. It is what it is. LSU's in the 80s in total offense and scoring offense. You cannot compete for a championship playing like that. That's our opening drive, brought to you by Genesis of Baton Rouge. We'll step aside, come back. Let's switch over to the Saints. We've talked about the quarterback position week over week. I want to do it again. It's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Talk with Glenn West coming up in about 15 minutes. Talk some Tigers with senior writer over there at Go 24/7. Let's go Saints here as we're easing into this Tuesday show. So a lot of talk on Sunday into Monday about the Saints quarterback position as Spencer Rattler had his first real clunker of a game on Sunday. The game went very poorly at Seattle, but I wouldn't suggest that was a lot of Spencer Rattler's fault. He wasn't out there and getting punts blocked and special teams touchdowns left and right. I mean, I don't think he was great, but he was not the issue. He was bad on Sunday. No two ways about it. The fumble was very careless. The interceptions were either very inaccurate or very poor decisions. Throwing the ball behind Mason Tipton and winging the ball down the sideline. It wasn't good. It was his first true clunker of the year. And let's be honest. You all knew that was going to come. Spencer Rattler wasn't going to play solid to really good football for 17 weeks of the season. So the question becomes, well, when do we get to look at Tyler Shough, right? And I've been very transparent with my feelings on the Saints' handling of quarterback. I thought when Tyler Shough was drafted in the second round, as high as he was by a new coaching staff, not a new front office, but a new coaching staff, that he would be the odds-on starter the first week. That was my opinion on the matter. I didn't see anything from Spencer Rattler last year that led me to believe that they really needed to give him a shot this year. I thought it would be Shough. And then it became obvious for those that were at practice and training camp every day in late July and throughout August that, actually, Rattler's been a little bit better. And Rattler's gotten more looks with the ones, and then you saw how things looked in the preseason, and, it started to feel okay, it's going to be Rattler. And I said before the season, I was like, okay, I'm good because it's easier to go from Rattler to Shough than it is from Shough to Rattler. Okay, that was my feeling on it. Whether or not that had anything to do with the decision that Kellen Moore made, that's how I felt. And so you send Spencer Rattler out there, and for somebody that thought that Shough had the higher ceiling and should have been the guy initially, I'm watching Spencer Rattler week over week going, okay, this is fine. There are some real positives. And I told you back 2 weeks ago, you got to keep him rolling. I don't need to just make a change for the sake of making a change. And right now, as it sits, right now, I don't feel like the Saints' record should have any bearing on your quarterback decision. That is a long-term answer that you are seeking. You cannot have it swayed by short-term thinking of, you're 1-4, you're 1-5, you're 1-6. Whoa, I don't care about that. Ultimately, you might have to do something if it gets way down the line because the players in the locker room may lose confidence, but I don't think we're close to that. And I think there's still reason for some optimism about Spencer Rattler. Even when I said 2 weeks ago, he's playing better, you've got to ride with him, I said in that same breath, I still think the odds are long that Spencer Rattler is the 10-year quarterback of the Saints that gets to 2 NFC championship games. That's unlikely. But I'm willing to see this through right now with him. And I feel that same way today after he played a stinker on Sunday. You just got to see how he responds to it. Now, a part of this equation is I am simply not putting Tyler Shough out there against Tampa and then certainly not on the road at the Rams. No shot. That Rams defensive front is a terror. The Saints just lost their starting center for the year. I'm not sending a rookie out there in his first action against those two teams. The Bucs and Rams are two of the better teams in the NFC by my eye. It's a very competitive sport right now. It's a very competitive league. We saw that Detroit got after Tampa. I get it, but those two teams, those two rosters and coaching staffs are doing a good job. I'm not sending Tyler Shough out there to have that. And we know that there are some softer games later in the season. After Tampa and the Rams, you've got the Panthers, that's on the road. You've got a home game with the Falcons after the bye. You've got a road game at the Dolphins, who are hapless. Then you've got the Bucs on the road, but you've got a home game against the Panthers and a home game against the Jets and a road game against the Titans before you finish at the Falcons. There are, if you're grading this on a scale of 1 being the easiest game you can possibly play and 10 being completely unwinnable, you've got a lot of games that are close to 2s and 3s on this schedule. Carolina twice, at the Dolphins, the Jets, the Titans. Like, these are the worst teams in the league. Now, you're one of those, but we're talking about the opposition. That's where I need Shough to get some reps if we're going to do that. I haven't even made the decision that that's got to happen right now. I'm very likely to make that decision because for Tyler Shough to get no time this year would have to mean that Spencer Rattler has ascended to a level where you really feel like you're hitching your entire organization's wagon to him. And I find that to be unlikely. But I'm willing to ride the escalator with him as high as it can go. And if we hit as high as that escalator is going to go on Sunday in Chicago, I wouldn't be stunned, and then we'll make a move. But for the next 2 games, I am absolutely, positively sticking with Spencer Rattler because the teams you're playing are very difficult. You just lost your starting center. I'm letting the guy who's got better than a season now of experience play. And if we need to make a decision with the game at the Panthers or we want to make that decision after the bye, I think that's always made a ton of sense. But for right now, just because you saw that game in Chicago with 4 turnovers and some bad action, I'm not ready to just ditch it and go to the young guy. It's an enticing and exciting thing for a fan base to say. Hope is a word that we've talked about a bunch with these Saints. A new coaching staff gives you hope, and a new quarterback always gives you hope. Now, it's fleeting, and in the NFL, the hit rate is very low. But you only have to hit once, and then you might have it for 10 years. And then you got to try to find a way to hit again. And some organizations are really good at hitting again, like the Packers. And some organizations search and search and search and search. And that's what the Saints are doing right now. So I'm committed to Rattler this week. I'm committed to Rattler in LA. That gets you into November. If for 2 straight weeks he plays very poorly, I will consider a start at the Panthers before the bye so that you've got film to go into the bye week to evaluate and then to get Shough definitely ready for a home game against the Falcons. And that's a stretch of 5 games that are very doable outside of a trip to Tampa. And to be truth be told, I'd like to see Shough in an adverse situation. Not right out of the chute, though. Not right out of the chute. You have the ability not to rush this. It's the only good thing about the Saints being where they are from a roster perspective. You don't have to rush anything. And if you can get Tyler Shough 5 or 6 games, that's plenty to look at. But I'm not going to bench Spencer Rattler based on one Sunday afternoon. That's where I am on the Saints quarterback situation. I think that's probably where Kellen Moore and his group are. But as I'm very open about, like there is room to alter this discussion every single week based on the new information you get, based on the level of play that you see, and based on what the schedule shakes out with, and what your roster looks like. And the loss of Eric McCoy, I think, is detrimental to what you're trying to do up front. I'm not ready to just toss a rookie in there with a center that is unidentified at this point. So we'll see what the Saints decide to do. We'll talk more about it at the bottom of hour number 2 with Sharif Ishaq. Jordan, you're listening to all that. Are you pro Rattler for a little bit more, or are you ready to pull it and go to the rookie?
Yeah, I can't pull the plug off one game, especially because even though we have one win, it's not like Rattler was, hurting the team necessarily. So other than this one, this was a bad performance. I think he has one more bad performance in him. So it's like, all right, now you're forcing my hand.
If you hit the plateau, you hit the plateau. Yeah, that's likely to happen.
Yeah.
As I've said many times, like Rattler's probably not the answer, but I'm willing to see it through.
Yeah, but
truth be told, Shough's probably not the answer either. That's just the statistical probability of quarterbacks in the NFL. Most of them wash out, but you've got 2 guys to try.
And you took him top 40. You got to see it.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you're going to see him eventually, unless Rattler just takes off.
Yeah, but no, I don't think just because of one game where it's like the world just fell apart. So it's like, yeah, pull the plug. No. One more bad game, you have to. Like, he's going to have to force your hand. But no, I mean, you got to just – it's not like Rattler's hurting you. One more game, though. If it's bad, now you gotta see.
I can't go to Shough at L.A. Not with that front against the Saints defense. I mean, we were told by the folks that went to practice when they practiced with the Rams out in training camp that the Saints couldn't get a playoff.
Yeah.
I can't send Shough out there to do that.
But the schedule's tough. Well,
no, it gets easier after that. Significantly.
I'm looking, you got the Panthers November 9th, but the Falcons, they got a front. Their front's not a slouch either.
It's a home game after the bye. And then after that, you really got it.
Yeah, the
Dolphins are terrible.
Got to see Tampa again.
Panthers are not good. The Jets are atrocious, and the Titans are bad.
I'm scared about that Jets game. I'm very scared about that Jets game.
Well, if you lose, then you're getting closer to the first overall pick.
I'm scared because like they need a W. They don't want to go 0-17. They don't.
Did you see that kid, that Jets fan kid? There was a news station outside the stadium, and the Jets fans were leaving. They're winless, and the news station says, "You have a comment on the game." This kid's probably like 12, 13, and he just looks at him with these like dead eyes, and he goes, "I hate this team.
Yeah,
I was born into it.
Yep.
And I'm always going to be a Jets fan, but I hate this team." And he just walks off.
And that's the realest thing a Jets fan has said in years.
I hate this team. I was born into it, and I'm always going to be a fan, but I hate this team. That's where the Jets are right now. Hopefully the Saints don't get to that point, but
I'm scared.
It's not great in black and gold land right now. We'll talk to Sharif Ishak about it in 1 hour. All right, when we come back, Glenn West, senior writer, Go 24/7 next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Former Tiger tight end Colin Jeter will be with us in 25 minutes. Top of the hour, Sharif Ishak. Bottom of hour number 2, talking Saints. Tuesday, bottom of hour number 1, we always talk to our guy Glenn West, senior writer, Go 24/7. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how are you, sir?
I've been better, Hunt. But how are you?
I'm all right. Tiger struggling. Went up to Nashville and got it handed to him by Vanderbilt. How surprising was that?
I guess in the kind of days after this game, and as you had to kind of digest it, you walk away really not as surprised as maybe you were in the moment. At least in my case, that game on Saturday was just, I think, the latest example of the symptom that has been plaguing this program now for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, and that's they just have not been able to get in sync when it matters most on offense and defense. They haven't been able to put together consistent enough 12, 13 game stretch here where you really feel like this is a playoff caliber team. And on Saturday it was the offense getting off to an okay start. They score on 5 of their first 6 possessions, and it's the defense that lets them down in the first 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, when the defense starts getting a couple stops, the offense goes 3 and out twice, and you're left kind of just hanging your head here about just what this team can realistically accomplish when the two sides of the ball just continue to be so far apart from a consistency standpoint. So it's very disappointing. I mean, I came into this season with a lot of high hopes about this group and the talent on this roster, and I think that there is talent on this roster on both sides of the ball, but we're just not seeing the results, and we're not seeing the I guess the coaching staff getting the most out of these players. So I don't know what that means for the next 5 weeks. I think it's going to be a really difficult stretch for LSU if they don't really get a lot of this stuff figured out in a very short amount of time. And we could be having some really difficult conversations here in the weeks to come.
What was the what's the most disappointing aspect of what happened on Saturday?
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably just the defensive performance. I mean, I was very high on this defense, and I know a lot of people were because they had been carrying this group for so long. But I think what we probably finally saw was, and I don't want to blame this on injuries. Let's just get that out of the way. I don't want to blame this on injuries, but you saw the depth kind of maybe catch up to them a little bit in this game. Whit Weeks is a huge part of this defense. Bernard Gooden's a huge part of this defense. Jamari Butler is a crucial piece on the edge. And what you saw Vanderbilt do was consistently go east and west on this group in the front 7, and they were able to get some really explosive plays, whether it was Pavia or these running backs that were just able to really kind of carve out some really big time plays and in big time moments that LSU's defense just could not stop. And going into that game, you thought that for LSU to have some success in this game, they'd have to get off the field on 3rd down and play well and part of that process would be getting them into first and second and long, and it just never felt like Vanderbilt was behind the chains. It always felt like they were in complete control, and honestly, kind of just dominated from an offensive perspective. And I never thought that we'd get to a point here where you look at offense and defense where Vanderbilt would be a team that would beat up on LSU a little bit, and that's certainly what happened on both sides of the ball on Saturday.
Offensively, do you take some positives from the fact that they scored on 5 of the first 6 drives, or do you feel like there's still a long way to go?
There's still a long way to go. I mean, like you do a good job of moving the ball into scoring positions, and you still are settling for field goals. And it was something we talked about after the South Carolina game. Could they turn some of those turnovers that they had down inside the 5-yard line, or settling for field goals in those situations into touchdowns and into finding the end zone? And the answer was very clearly no. They couldn't do that on against Vanderbilt. And I think there's a lot of things that play into that. I wrote about it this morning. I think the inefficiency in the red zone is right there at the top of that, and then certainly the physicality on the offensive line I think plays into that. The inability to run the ball when you really need to in critical situations it plays into that. And at the end of the day, play calling factors into that as well. I mean, like they have not been able to get in sync at any point really offensively to where you feel like this team is capable of scoring 30 plus points in an SEC game. I mean, they haven't shown the ability to do that yet, despite being able to show that they can move the ball a little bit on some of these teams the last couple of weeks, and averaging 6 yards a carry. When it matters most, they're just not able to make those plays and execute.
Let's talk about LSU and Texas A&M Saturday night. Do you feel like the defense, maybe with a week for some of those guys to heal up in Tiger Stadium, will bring a better performance than they did against Vanderbilt?
Sure hope so. I mean, that needs to be kind of where I think LSU puts a lot of its emphasis this week is trying to get some of these guys healthy. I thought it was not alarming, but definitely a different change of routine for Brian Kelly to not come out and kind of tell us what the status of those players are going into the beginning of the week. I mean, he'd been pretty consistently doing that, and on Monday when he was asked about Weeks and Gooden and Butler, he kind of just said, "Well, we'll save it till Wednesday, and you'll see our report on Wednesday." Kind of an answer there. So that doesn't give me much optimism, but at the same time, if they're able to feel like these next 4 or 5 days can get some of those guys healthier and on the field, then you're going to have to get as many of them as you can, because this is a very difficult and explosive Texas A&M offense. Marcel Reed is, I think, one of the more improved players in the entire conference, and obviously we know what he can do with his legs from what we saw from last week. And you're going to need, I think, all hands on deck, or as many as possible, to try to get this group off the field.
What's the biggest concern you have for LSU coming up on Saturday? Is it Reed running, or is it something else?
I think it's probably Reed running. I mean, if you watch the game against Diego Pavia, I mean, that guy is just he's remarkable at being able to extend plays. And if LSU is going to be on the field for 60, 70 snaps again, like it seems like they are every week, it could turn into a track meet, and one where you're going to need as much depth and as much healthy players as possible. From an offensive line perspective, this is one of the more difficult challenges from their 2 edges that they have on with their defensive line. I think that they create a lot of pressure up front. They're able to create some negative plays, but it's going to be on these 2 tackles, whether it's DJ Chester or Weston Davis, to really try to kind of keep this thing upright for Garrett Nussmeier and give him the requisite time to make some plays and some positive throws. And I just don't know if we've seen anything close to resembling that they can show that they can do that. And so it sounds like they're sticking though with those same 5 from what Brian Kelly was telling us on Saturday. I personally would love to see some more Carius Kern. I'd love to see some more, some of these younger players get an opportunity maybe, but they've clearly, realized that, experience over youth is where they're going, at least in the short term with this unit.
It surprised me that he said Josh Thompson is not the move, because he does have so much experience, and he played tackle at Northwestern. He played right tackle and not left tackle, but if you're going to lean on experience, like Thompson seems to make some sense. He's at least played a season at tackle where DJ Chester has not.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would probably not put Thompson at left tackle. I think if there was to be a move with Thompson, it would they have to be at right tackle, which means you would, maybe slide Chester over to guard and then maybe put Kern at left tackle, something like that. I mean, like, I just think that what we saw this last weekend, if that wasn't an indication of just where LSU feels their depth is on the offensive line, it's going to need a total rebuild. I think this off season, because you can hopefully bank on some younger players developing, but they very clearly don't have much confidence that the guys behind these starters are any better or going to be able to perform in any positive kind of manner for them. And yeah, they've really settled on this 5, and I can't. I'm a little bit surprised at how much they have leaned into that and haven't been experimenting as much here with their O-line, because of the performance that we just saw and performances we've seen really all season. They've been beat up, but they've also been pushed around, and that's just, it's not a recipe for success when you have a quarterback that's not nearly as mobile as he needs to be with Garrett Nussmeier.
Got a gut feeling on how Saturday goes?
Yeah, I think A&M comes in here and wins. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of confidence right now, I think, with watching this team perform, that they can put it together. And I think I do want to walk back something I said earlier. Like, they can have good games, like they can have good moments in throughout the entirety of the season, and maybe one of those moments will be this weekend against A&M. But I think it's just one of those things where we've seen 4 years now where they can get up big for Alabama in the first year, but they also will get blown out by Tennessee, or they'll lose to Florida State in some weird different ways. And like they can beat Clemson in week 1, but a couple weeks later against Ole Miss, they'll shoot themselves in the foot offensively and not be able to put together a complimentary performance. And there's just been so much of that here through 4 years that it's hard to envision this group running the tables here over the next 5 games. And honestly, how it looks over the next couple of weeks, I think will really define a lot of what the decision-making process looks like at the end of the season.
We'll have to see. Glenn West, senior writer at Go 24/7, all your team coverage, recruiting, football, basketball, baseball, you got it all over there, Go 24/7. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
We'll come back and close out hour number 1 when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. January 1st renewals are coming up. If you're a business owner or you're in charge of risk management, your CFO, and insurance falls under your purview, well, if you're looking for a second set of eyeballs for your renewal at the first of the year, now's the time to get involved with that. And if you're looking for a broker that can do a great job for you with your commercial insurance, the Highland Insurance Group, my friend Jonathan Carbo and company are happy to help you with that. They've got an amazing team that is just focused on analyzing the details of every policy to make sure it's ready to respond properly. The coverage is so important. We know that price is important. We know that premium is important, but coverage is also so important. And because there are so many exclusions and loopholes and things that could cost you down the road, sometimes folks don't look at them, but the Highland Insurance Group always will do that for you. That's how they win business. That's how they keep business in their building. They're right here in Baton Rouge. You can check them online at HighlandIG.com. It's Jonathan Carbo and the team at the Highland Insurance Group. HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Reminder, sports trivia every Tuesday, Court to Table on Burbank, an incredible new facility there. If you listen to this station over the last couple of months, you've heard us talk about Court to Table. Matt's done a show from over there. But we started sports trivia back up last week. Just had an awesome crowd. Really appreciate y'all for coming out last week. Had a ton of fun. It's a great venue. Got a lot of seating, bar seating, high table seating. Got some booth seating as well. Got great food, got great drinks. I'm calling out trivia questions. Got gift cards you can win. $25 gift cards for every round for first place. Also had some pickleball rental gift cards for second places back on last week. And we're going to crank it up again tonight at 8 o'clock. But they're also having a cool event tonight, 5 to 8, percentage of their proceeds from the dinner crowd from 5 to 8 are going to go to Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. So if you come on out, they'll have live music 5 to 8. You can eat some dinner. Proceeds go to a great cause. And you can hang out and play some sports trivia tonight at 8 o'clock. So the Burbank location, have you out of there 9:15, 9:20 or so. Not trying to keep you up all hours of the night here on a Tuesday. If you're looking to have some fun, coming out to Court to Table tonight for some sports trivia. We're very much looking forward to it. What a show last night in Toronto. The Blue Jays come back and win against Seattle 4-3, 3-run homer by Springer in the 7th to give the Blue Jays the lead. Seattle had kind of controlled the game to that point. Kirby was really good starting the game. Cal Raleigh hits a big home run. J-Rod hits a big home run in the first. Like, they got things going, and the Blue Jays hit the big swing. And the winning pitcher in the game, even though he didn't have his best stuff, was Kevin Gausman last night. He came in, through one inning, did walk a couple of guys, and he issued an intentional walk to Raleigh, but he did get through an inning of work and then handed things to Chris Bassett and then to Hoffman for the save, and they got to the finish line to send the Blue Jays to the World Series. Just a gut-wrenching series loss for the Mariners, who open the ALCS on the road in Toronto and win the first 2 games. You win the first 2 games on the road. That means you've got to win just 2 of the next 4 with the next 3 at home, and they just couldn't get it to the finish line. But the theater was just unbelievable in Toronto. That place was going nuts. It's always look, there's nothing better than watching your team in the fight, right? You're living and dying with every pitch or every play or every shot, depending on what score it is. Like, there's nothing better than that. I had so much fun watching the Cubs for that week and a half in the playoffs. It's awesome. But when you can step back and not have a dog in the fight, and trust me, you would be hard-pressed to find a matchup that I care less about from a rooting interest than the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't care at all about either of those 2 teams. So it was just good to sit back and watch it. When Gausman comes in, absolutely want that guy to do awesome stuff, and I think we're not too far from Kate Anderson getting on the bump from the Seattle Mariners here in a year or so, and I'll have rooting interest in those guys, and certainly did with Kevin last night. But it just is to watch the environment and to watch a fan base in Toronto that has gone, I guess, 30 years without seeing that World Series. I mean, Joe Carter, that's one of my earliest sports watching memories. I was in my bed on a tiny little TV next to my bed watching Joe Carter hit that home run off Mitch Williams. And they haven't won a World Series since then. And to see that city and that fan base and generations come together, and to see that moment where Springer hits the home run, you go from down 2 to up 1 with one swing of the bat, and to see the place just come completely unglued was incredible. I listened to the radio calls, both the Blue Jays call and the Mariners call, and it's just the amazing emotions that postseason baseball can elicit. And the Mariners had a phenomenal year. Cal Raleigh was going to get a lot of MVP votes. I still think Judge is going to win it, but going to get a lot of MVP votes, and deservedly so. But Springer, man, that guy in the postseason is just absolutely clutch. And if you're going to cloud his entire career with the banging the trash can stuff in Houston and suggest that none of those guys can do anything anywhere else, Bregman had a pretty good go of it in Boston this year, and Springer had a monster year for the Jays, and last night was certainly a cherry on top of that. So I don't know if I like the Blue Jays to go beat the Dodgers. They'll be able to reset their pitching because for some reason Major League Baseball is going from Monday to Friday without a game. So they'll be able to reset things and get things lined up, and certainly the Dodgers will start with Snell, and they'll come at you with a ridiculous amount of talent as well. And I don't think that I would pick the Blue Jays to win, but it's an incredible opportunity for them. And you won't get much more drama than you saw last night in Toronto with a 3-run shot in the 7th to take it from a 2-run deficit to a 1-run lead. So shout out Kevin Gausman. I'll be pulling for him like crazy. I don't know if he'll get the ball on Friday or Saturday. Probably one of those 2 home games you'll see Kevin Gausman get the baseball. So hopefully that goes well. And I guess for that reason, I'll probably pull for Toronto to win over the Dodgers. I don't really care about the Dodgers, even though they're in the National League and they're a juggernaut. Like, I feel like their ownership group does it the right way. You can say it's ruining baseball, but at least they're committed to it. I've got an ownership group in the 3rd market in the country that won't do squat and is letting guys walk left and right and signing guys to tiny little contracts. The Dodgers just go spend all their money, and that's an awesome thing. So I do like that aspect of the Dodgers organization. But with Kevin Gausman on the mound, it's a guy who I covered at LSU, got a chance to spend some time with at Ronnie Rance's fundraiser back in January of last year. I pull for him. He's a great guy, makes his home here in Baton Rouge, and he'll get a chance to try to win a World Series here. And if they do, he'll probably play a big part in it. So big night in Major League Baseball last night. That'll close out hour number 1. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. We'll step aside and pause for our national headlines with SportsCenter. When we come back, Colin Jeter from the Alumni Association, former tight end, talking some LSU football. Sharif Shough in 30.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. When I got a tour of their facility back a few weeks ago, I was walking through, and there was this empty room. I was like, what's the empty room here? I said, oh, this is our climate-controlled area where we let folks look through the cars. So you bring the car out of the parking lot where at that point it was August. It's 1 billion degrees, and you just bring it into the air conditioning so you can go through all the features, all the bells and whistles with that brand ambassador to make sure that everything is exactly the way that you want it. And you don't have to do that in the rain. You don't have to do that in the cold. You don't have to do that in the dark. You do it in a spot that they've built specifically just for your comfort in checking out the vehicles. That's attention to detail. And that's the kind of amazing touch that you're going to get from the folks at Genesis of Baton Rouge every time you go. It's an amazing experience. It's a luxury brand. It's a reasonable price. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Airline at Piku or online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.